Georgia Tech 42, Georgia 44, possibly the game of the year in 8 overtimes. 8 overtimes, my goodness. The clean, good old-fashioned hate, gotta love it, man. There was a time when Georgia and Georgia Tech was one of the games of the week in rivalry week of college football. I mean that. Because people don't understand. People understand the historical significance of Georgia. People don't understand the historical significance of Georgia Tech. Like, these two programs have combined for 10 national championships. They've combined for 32 conference championships, 16 each. There's been so many classics in this. 99, for example, the 51-48 game. That was an awesome game. There's others. This one right in front of me, 2008. And there's been some awesome games in this rivalry. And for the first time in a long, long time, we got a taste of that last Friday. We did. And if you're a Georgia Tech fan, although you didn't win this game, there's a lot of positives that you can take away from this game, because Brent Key might be building something. Man, Georgia Tech bullied Georgia in the trenches. 5.4 yards per carry? When is the last time we could say that a Georgia Tech team bullied Georgia in the trenches? We could say it last Friday. Georgia Tech probably should have won this game. On paper, they outgained them 160 yards. They had more passing yards, more rushing yards, they had more yards per play, and more first downs on the road, in Athens, in Sanford Stadium. Haynes King, 24 carries, 110 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And an underrated part of all of this, this has nothing to do with the actual game that just happened, but this is something that I really want to get into. Georgia Tech has the 18th best recruiting class right now, according to 247. Now, Harris, why is that significant? Georgia Tech's on track to sign their first ever top 20 class since 247 started keeping track of recruiting rankings in 2010. So I want to tell y'all something. I want to break down college football. I want to break down recruiting in college football. So if you know recruiting, you'll understand that there are 5 high school football capitals in the world. In no order. They are Los Angeles, Houston, Dallas, Atlanta, and Miami. Those are the places where you are going to find the most football talent right there. Georgia Tech's in Atlanta, Georgia. They're right in the smack of it. They're not near it. They're in it. And for so long, Atlanta, Georgia has been a poaching grounds, a pipeline state, if you will, for teams like Bama, Georgia, Clemson, Auburn, Tennessee, these teams that they're all within 3 hours of Atlanta, but these teams that can say, we're going to contend for a national championship or you're going to play in the SEC, and they are able to poach kids right from Georgia Tech stomping grounds. Well, guys, Georgia Tech being in Atlanta, they don't have to be a world beater. They don't have to be Ohio State. They don't have to be Georgia. They can put together a couple 7-win seasons like they have these last 2 years under Brent Key, and get a guy who really cares and convince some people in state to stay in Georgia Tech. That's all they have to do. They don't have to be like a Nebraska to convince these talented players to go far away from home where they know absolutely nobody or know nothing about the town. All that they can say is say, hey, you're really talented, and we can get you to stay here at home right by your family, right? So with that being said, here's something that y'all should know. Of all 8 of the 4-star commits Georgia Tech has right now, you know how many are from the state of Georgia? All eight of them. All 8 of them. Georgia Tech can put together a couple 7-win seasons, and boom, they can start getting some talent. Because, man, Georgia Tech, I mentioned the history, and I mentioned the location. There's not a lot of schools that have both of those. Georgia Tech, man, they have both of those because forever Georgia Tech's been trying to lure these kids to stay in state, and they've said no, we're gonna go play in the SEC. We're gonna go contend for a national championship, and that's what they've done. Well, you know what last Saturday showed? Last Friday, I beg your pardon. Last Friday showed Brent Key can go into those recruits' living rooms and say, look, we're not where we want to be, but we can be where we want to be. And you saw it last Friday. We didn't beat Georgia, but we were darn near close. We were one missed kick away from it. And we think with you, we can get there. That's exactly what Brent Key said. Because not only that, in Athens, by the way, that's an underrated part of all of this. Georgia doesn't lose in Athens. It is incredibly rare. But Georgia Tech nearly went in there and did it themselves. Something that should be celebrated if you're a Georgia Tech fan. Yes, you didn't win the game. I understand it. But it's a positive. There's a lot of positives you can take from this. And if you're Georgia, just something. I'm going to shift gears here. Alarmingly a theme for Georgia here. Because last week against UMass, Georgia gave up UMass. I repeat, UMass. Power rated as the worst team in the FBS according to the Triple H model. They gave up 40 carries for 226 yards, 5.7 yards per carry allowed to UMass. Well, same thing happened with Georgia Tech, and that's 2 weeks now where Georgia's playing against inferior opponents in which they probably should be just devastating them in the trenches, and they've gotten lit up. So if you're Kirby Smart, I wonder, is Georgia keeping schemes, perhaps, that they don't want to be revealed during the SEC Championship or the CFP? Just a question I have that's worth asking. Anyway, Georgia Tech, Georgia, what a game. I'm glad we got an awesome game from this. This is an underrated rivalry, a lot of hatred between these two programs that hasn't quite been displayed for quite a long time. So Georgia Tech, man, Georgia Tech might be coming. Georgia Tech's coming. And these SEC teams, they should watch out.